say.
Yeah, we're gonna give people a little bit of time filed in here. Um, I don't know if you all noticed the title. Hopefully you did, but we have a very, very special guest with us, Miss Elle Latham. So Elle, would you like to say a few words to the chat before we start get going on our main topic tonight?
Yeah. I'm based in Hollywood and my podcast, which is Super Awkward Podcast, and we spoke on it before. We had a lovely
You're
discussion,
talking?
two discussions, and I think we got a lot of shit in there like that's coming out now. I try to be ahead of the curve, the media, as much as possible, which is easy to do. Anyone can if they're paying attention.
How are we doing tonight, Chris?
I'm all right, man. I'm just here, just trying to make sense of the world. Very few things do make sense, But other than that, Elle, it's good to have you. Nice to meet you. One day, hopefully I get to see more than your voice.
You can see me in your mind.
Yeah, exactly. Now, are you on East Coast, West Coast, Midwest?
Me, I'm West Coast, so in Hollywood, California, not Florida. So yeah.
Okay, got it.
I know there are two Hollywoods. One is more famous than the other.
Yeah, I go hang out in the Hollywood down here by me.
See, that's why he gets a little mixed up because he's like, wait a minute, which Hollywood are we talking about here? And guess what? I've been to both.
I have not.
Yeah, I haven't been to Hollywood. I've been to San Francisco twice, but other than that, that's about it.
I've been once.
All right.
Got some good picks.
I guess I will get started. Hello, everyone. This is the Political Matrix. I am your host, Young Morpheus. Tonight, we have a very, very, very interesting topic to get into. Many people, they may know what it is, they may not know what it is, but we're talking about the Great Reset. Some people think that it's a conspiracy theory, but we can show you the actual organizations which speak out and have press conferences that show you that it's not. And we're going to go into some of the things which make up, what goes on to this council, the individuals involved, some of the corporations involved, some of the different nation states. And we have a very special guest. Those just tuning in with us, we have Elle Latham from the Super, I'm going to mess it up. Elle, finish it for me.
Super Awkward Funcast.
Perfectly named because that just got a little awkward, me trying to announce the show. So I'm so glad to have Elle here. We had two conversations. The first one, I was actually fortunate enough to have the time to go actually in person and sit down with Elle, have a nice deep conversation about a ton of different issues. For those who didn't catch that, please make sure to check out her podcast. And you guys might be a little bit blown away. I was very impressed with how much information that she had, that she was able to show ties across the board to many things which I tangentially kind of saw and kind of pieced together. And I found a little bit there, but she really knitted a lot of those things together very well. So I wanted to try to reach out to her more often to have some of her expertise and some of her diligent researching skills. Earlier today, I referred to her as is kind of like a librarian almost. Like she holds on to all of it, catalogs it nice and neat. So anytime you have a question, she could pull it right up and produce it. And so much respect for that, and I'm very impressed and glad to have her here.
Thank you.
Of course.
Glad to be here.
We welcome you.
So the topic tonight, I figure I'm going to let my man Chris take more of the lead on the questions, and then I'm gonna just have Elle just expand on whichever topics, however she wants to go into it, wherever she wants to start, because it's a lot to go into. So I will hand it over to Chris. Have at it.
Well, I guess first, for those who are not too familiar with the Great Reset, I guess we could start at the very beginning. Elle, I would ask you to explain to people, just I guess briefly, what is the World Economic Forum?
Well, it is an organization founded by Klaus Schwab, our dear leader, and it is to bring business interests together to destroy the planet, pretty much. Under the guise of helping people work and making people environmentally conscious and their best selves through biometric IDs and digital technology going bananas and everyone being a robot, basically.
Okay, now, I mean, there's a bunch of things you said in there, so I'm just gonna try to remember each one. So when you say destroy the planet, elaborate on that.
Well, pretend to help the planet by working with people like Bayer and Monsanto and all those horrible, horrible corporations to pretend to care about the environment while destroying it at the same time. So they'll be working with, like what I saw today, and I'll give credit to Corbett Report because he's amazing and he's a major inspiration to me, and made me research a lot more, is that he said to look at the partners on the website for the World Economic Forum, which I have done for EcoHealth Alliance, and I'll get into that if you want later, but and find out the companies that are backing this organization. And it's not the best company. AIG, we got like Bayer, as I said, Bayer in Germany. You know, the people
There, yeah.
the Holocaust. Sorry, and then you got like Bank of America, oh boys, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, of course, because they're behind everything. And what did I see before? Or what did you see? Pfizer, of course. Johnson & Johnson. Same suspects. The usual suspects, basically. The people making the money right now from making people sick or die, basically. And it just, you go down the list. YMCA. Okay. That's an interesting one. Didn't expect the YMCA on there.
What? Hold on.
Oh, what's that? I'm getting a lot of static.
We just had a manual come in. Hey, man, you got a lot of static.
Oh, okay, I do. Okay.
Okay, it went away.
Just give me.
It just went away.
It went away. No, sound check one more time. You sounded fine.
You sure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Do I? Is it me?
No, you're good. You're
if
good.
It is, I can change.
You're perfectly good now. You're perfectly good.
Okay.
All right. Since you're just tuning in, I'll kind of get you updated. Tonight, remember Elle Latham, who I went on her show. What was it? Maybe about 2 weeks ago, and did two back-to-back interviews. Now tonight we're having her on, and she is going to expound on a lot of the details about the Great Reset and going into Klaus Schwab and many of these different corporations which are involved in. At the moment, she just got down to one of the names on the list that was a big shock to me. She said the YMCA. So could you say that again? Did you actually say YMCA, like the actual YMCA that the kids and everybody go to and like homeless people sleep in? That same YMCA that's tied in with the YWCA, for the women's organization also?
Yeah, they have a page on the WEF website, weform.org/organizations/YMCA of the US with dashes in between, and you can look at it yourself. And it says how they partnered with the WEF. So the Y is a leading nonprofit committed to strengthening community by connecting all people to their potential purpose and each other. Working locally, it focuses on empowering young people, improving health and well-being, and inspiring action in and throughout communities. Y has 2,700 locations in 10,000 communities throughout the country. Some 22 million people come to the Y to learn, grow, and thrive. More than 500,000 volunteers are personally vested in strengthening their communities. It has 20,000 full-time staff and 1,518 YMCAs serve low-income communities. So this is an example of people that they connect with to make it look like they're doing good in the world. They're doing this with the YMCA, but then you see they're doing shit with Bayer, and you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. But then we got Moderna on there, of course, like all of the vaccine distributors who are helping save the world right now. And then, of course, Welcome Trust, Walmart, our favorite. Love them. Williams Sonoma. He was talking about this Corbett on the Corbett report, James Corbett on the last episode. Died into the World Economic Forum. Shout out to Corbett. And he's still on YouTube, surprisingly, but just his backup channel. And they do ban his videos pretty quickly sometimes. It's pretty funny. But in this one, he said just look at the partners and see which organization you can't support anymore. Like, be civil. Like, there's only so much you can do, but do your best to boycott, basically. Put your
even if you go to the World Economic Forum's website, right, and you just do a search for their partners, they have a list from A to Z, and there's pretty much not a company that you can think of relative size that's not on that list. You know what I'm saying? Even like Adobe Acrobat, you know, the thing that you use at work sometimes to play with documents, even they're a partner. You know what I'm saying? So from large to small, they pretty much capture it all. But you have to realize the money ties them all together in this way, because we've seen with the corona, the lockstep movement of all of these companies. You can just tell that the money, obviously, that they accumulate through their charitable, that the principals accumulate through their charitable organizations, it's really just a tool to keep the middle management in line. Would you agree or disagree?
I would definitely agree.
I agree with you, Chris.
When you go into the whole boycotting thing, another thing which gets complicated with that, which I even stopped wasting my time with it, because when it comes down to it, almost every corporation is involved in this in some kind of way, whether they are willing and knowing and part of whatever nefarious parts of it, or whether they're not, whether they're just, like Chris was saying, a middleman or a middlewoman, whatever, a corporation which is just being used for a specific purpose, you know, for a temporary time, you know, being, whatever that case might be. Not everybody knows, but they are still tied together through that money.
And also, like, what was I going to say? That there's a monopoly situation where so many media organizations are under the same group. So that makes it very difficult for you to kind of change to a different group, because another group owns this other thing, these other publications, you know. It's pretty crazy.
Well, and that also, sorry, I was going to say, it also ensures that the information that is released to the public at large is all, you know, vetted and, you know, tailored to fit whatever agenda they have going on. And that's why it's so easy for them to take independent media producers, or creators rather, and just, you know, basically make fun of them more or less, or to say that, you know, they're just only conspiracy theorists, or what they're saying has no merit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Emmanuel, I was wondering, what's some of your thoughts or any question you have for Elle so far?
Well, I guess I appreciate that Elle showed up. I see hi Mona in the chat. I didn't realize that you had two parts to the video because I only listened to the tail end of the second one. I guess because that was the most recent one.
Yeah, the second.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there was a second part to it. So I only listened to that 1 hour portion, like prior to like showing up in the chat, which is the reason why I was late. So I didn't know that there were two parts. I thought it was very informative, especially when y'all were going in about Epstein. That cracked me up. So, but we've been discussing the whole concept. Go on.
I was just gonna say they just destroyed his house nearby. You know, because I live real close to this, so you know I know they were talking about it. It's such a weird place, Palm Beach. It's really different. It's very different.
I never.
Man.
Oh, what was that?
Wait, I didn't hear that.
Oh, I think Chris asked you something, man.
Oh, what did Chris ask me? Because I didn't hear it. I'm sorry. Repeat it, Chris.
I was just telling you to finish up what you were saying.
Oh, okay. Well, we've been talking about the whole concept of the New World Order for some time now, and then I guess with the whole rise of the Delta variant portion of COVID-19, I guess we'll see. You know, I guess we'll see them, you know, fine tuning like all of the I guess herding out all of the kinks or bugs or whatever, you know, between the jabs for joints for jabs and the all vaccination concerts. We're just, you know, it seems like we're going to see, like, I guess, the next phase of it. Because I had implied that. Go on.
I was gonna say they won't even give out like vegetables for jabs, right? It's all like donuts, soda. It's all like
Washington State is giving out joints for getting the vaccine. So
I did, but to be honest, I did hear somebody talking about like if you get the jab, that there is some kind of like they'll pay off a certain amount of your college loans or something crazy like that too.
But the joint thing was like.
Let me put this comment up. This is interesting. It says, "Happy to catch a live stream. I'm from/in Germany, so I'm usually sleeping this time or at a party before the times. Recently heard Marcus on Franco and was intrigued only halfway through the vids. Pretty cool. We have a viewer catching the live stream from Germany. So welcome. Very, very happy to have you here. Any questions that you have, please jump in the chat. We like to invite everybody in and be kind of, you know, very, very friendly in this environment. We like to debate. So always tough on the facts, soft on the people, you know, so we try to stick to that mindset. So, and honesty is our goal in this. I mean, if you see, we don't try to put out PayPals and all this stuff and worrying about collecting, you know, anything. Our goal is just to try to put out the information as honest and truthful as we can. So I'm very, very excited and happy to have you here. Thank you.
You used to get a lot of traffic from Europe. Not like way back in the when we first started, right?
That was on my other channel, but they blocked me to a couple of parts of Europe. So our friend here is found a way to get around that little blockade and been able to get my content on a different channel. So very, very happy to have. Make sure I try to say it correct. Tapir Sweet Sour says, "I'm so happy my mother and sister arrived, not going near the damn injection separately. Apparently people from East Germany are less likely to take it." That is interesting because they've been, and that's the reason why all of these incentive programs are going on, no matter where it is, no matter which countries and nations, because though they're putting out these numbers, oh, we're going to get this many people to take the jab or whatever, and oh, so many people are, everything's going perfectly fine, and they're bragging about these numbers, but you got to wonder, why are you offering so much stuff of wealth for free if people are just taking it all willy-nilly? And obviously people are not, and they're not hitting the numbers which they plan to hit by the certain time, especially by the 4th of July weekend, which I believe they're shooting for. So I believe that they're trying to be able to have this big number to say, look, we got this amount of population, but they're falling far behind it. And I think not only in America, obviously in Germany, they're waking up to what's going on too, and hopefully a lot more of the other countries. I know in certain parts of Africa, I believe it was in Nigeria, where that president said, no, you're not, no, we're not taking that at all. So, you know, you can forget that idea. Yeah, Elle, would you like to elaborate on that? Because we talked about that, I believe.
Well, I wanted to say, do you think the numbers are correct? Like, I don't know what the number was last time, but like 100 and something million people got the shot in the U.S. Do you think they could be lying about that? I mean, I feel like they lie about everything else. Why would they lie about that? And then at the same time offer these incentives, these ridiculous incentives that aren't health conscious at all. You know what I really think they should have done if they were thinking straight was put everything together, and while they're instituting the Great Reset through this vaccination thing, they could also offer vegan burgers, like get their money on the side for the Beyond Burger and the Impossible Burger. Shout out to those horrible meat alternatives. But like at the same time that they're already like putting that agenda into place to get people to eat less meat, maybe even cicadas apparently on all these news networks.
Elle, you know what that reminds me? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you know what that reminds me of? Which movie, right? Back in the day?
Soylent.
Exactly. Did you guys hear it?
Soylent
Soylent Green.
Mm-hmm. And everybody thinks.
Invested in both of them, though. Bill Gates.
Well, that's the thing. With all of these things, how many coincidences before you have to start taking something seriously? It's like if every time you came home and your door was unlocked, but you swore you locked it. And so each time you would do something a little different. Like you would put the rug in front of there. So if the rug was moved also, you knew somebody opened the door and came in. All right, the next time you're like, maybe I moved it. The next time you'll put, you know what? I'll sprinkle dirt across. And so the next time they come in, now you see footprints. It's like, okay, the evidence is starting to get more clear and more clear. How long before you start taking what you're seeing serious? Or are you just going to keep ignoring it until eventually the burglar has enough courage to go all the way into the bedroom and stand over you in your bed? Sorry to be a little dramatic in my analogy.
No, I understand. I wanted to ask you, I'm glad someone was concerned about the numbers that they were talking about, because I see on one end, you know, they're bringing in a second Statue of Liberty. They're talking about like huge numbers. So they're bringing France sent over another second Statue of Liberty. Look it up. They sent another statue that's coming, right? So obviously they're trying to make right. And what's up, Variant? They brought in another one, so I'm confused as to what's going on with that. You got the news basically saying they have to destroy like millions of vaccines, I guess from I think Johnson & Johnson, because
what?
Hold up. From like Johnson & Johnson. No, okay. They're destroying millions of vaccines from like Johnson & Johnson, right? So you know, there's a lot of contradictory information. It seems like Biden wants it to be over by the 4th, so he can say, I stopped the vaccine by the 4th. I got everybody's jobs back. Look at me, hooray. But I don't really trust the data for that. So that was my take on it. That was it.
I also wanted to make it clear, like, they keep bringing up COVAX. They don't say who backs that in the media. And guess what? It's Bill Gates. So,
What?
you know, station Gabby and Seppi vaccine. So, or Innovate, whatever it is on Twitter. But, like, the Seppi organization was founded by Bill Gates, and Bill Gates founded Gabby, which is the Vaccine Alliance thing. And Donald Trump promoted Gabby in a June 2020 video. Find on YouTube anywhere.
Wasn't it?
By looking at Donald Trump Gabby.
You know what's funny is that Donald Trump, you know, this is how he played his people, right? I love this. He says, "Oh, we're not part of the World Health Organization anymore, but we're gonna give all our money to Gavi." I'm like, and his people really thought like he was doing something like impressive, and I'm just saying, so you skip the middleman and you're giving the money straight to the people with the needles. Got it. That makes sense.
Whoa.
I mean, you couldn't write this as a movie and make it make sense, and yet it's real life. It's amazing.
Correct.
Elle, we got
That's
a couple of comments here. I think you should hear. Here, Chris, can you read the comments?
Yeah. So it says, our Fauci was there. Germany's Fauci was instrumental in the whole thing. He supplied specs for the PCR with the 45 cycle threshold, which brings us 90% false positives. He also hypothesized the asymptomatic spread, just like Fauci did. You know, all of those things were very key. The cycle threshold being as high as it was, and also the threat of the asymptomatic super spreader. Those two things, I think, alone are responsible for the fear that a lot of people have, because they didn't understand it. And if they did understand it, they wouldn't have been so scared or frightened. Like me, they want you to think asymptomatic. Oh, you could have a respiratory illness and not know it and spread it to somebody else. Like, no one really put deep thought into that. They just heard the word and got scared. It's unfortunate. I laugh now, but it's really unfortunate.
Yeah. So with that tied in, what are some of your thoughts on that? How much do you know about that that whole PCR cycle?
I do know that it was admitted by Tara O'Toole in Clade X, which is one of these Johns Hopkins University sponsored pandemic preparedness events, like Event 201 that would come the next year. But this was in May 2018. You can find it on YouTube and verify this information, of course, where in one of the segments, I think it was the first one, but no, it had to be the fourth one. Anyway, one of the segments, because it's like a 4-segment video series, they are talking about diagnostics, and she says it clear. The PCR is not a diagnostic test. We need rapid point of care. She says it wrong at the first part because she messes up her script, but then she changes it back to point of care. So rapid point of care test works better than PCR test. According to Tara O'Toole from InQtel, who's the executive vice president of InQtel, and works for the Center for Health Security, or part of the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. So she said it herself in one of their little exercises where they killed like 100-something million people. I can't remember how many million, but over 100 million, which is why, spoiler alert, the dude Tom Inglesby, I always forget his name, says in the Event 201 that they only killed 65 million this time. That was improving. And then they all laughed. So I didn't know why they laughed in that one, but I had to watch the prequel to the Event 201 to figure that out.
Whoa.
They like to laugh at him.
Wow.
That was put on by the WWF as well, the Event 201.
That's another piece of media that really, it only made the rounds in certain sections. And of course, our favorite leftists on Twitter and lefties, supposed lefties, they all ignored it. None of them picked it up. And it fell into the sphere of what they would call right-wing, media. So they missed it all. And every time you brought it up to these people in March, April, May of 2020, it was like, oh, that's Alex Jones' realm. That's the right wing. But it was like, that wasn't a, it wasn't a political thing. They made it a political thing. And unfortunately, the consumers bought that shit. I don't know why, but it was so obvious.
Manuel,
Yeah.
I was wondering,
Well, go ahead. I thought Elle was going to say something, but I can say something after Elle.
I was just saying, yeah.
oh.
Oh, okay. What was I going to? Man, I had it too.
I saw you were about to say something, so I was like, yeah, what were you gonna say?
Right, I was literally about to say something. You just get back to me and I'll remember. But it tied into what y'all were talking about.
So for those
Uh,
tuning in, I see some of the numbers. It goes in and out. So for some who are just tuning in, I see our good friend Signs out of Oregon is tuned in with us. Can you kind of
what's up, Signs?
again kind of an overview of like the Great Reset, and then we can kind of dig back in to where we left off with this whole Great Reset and some of the funding. Oh, sorry, Elle.
What's up?
Oh, sorry, I was addressing that to you, Elle.
Oh, okay. Well, I did a whole read of what do you call it? You know, where you read a book, an audiobook, yeah, kind of thing on my Super Opera Funcat, where I do like a play every year. And this time I was like, I'm gonna read COVID-19: The Great Reset by Klaus Schwab and Thierry Malloritz, and I did, and it hurt, and in many ways. But he goes from the past, like all of these quarantines in the past, and he doesn't even seem to know what believe what he's saying, which is just hilarious, because like he does certain things. He's like, you can just tell somebody's pulling his strings, and he doesn't actually believe what he's saying in the text. And I don't know if that's the other guy's work or not, like if he wrote most of it and then Klaus's name is on it, but it's an interesting read. If you guys want to give it a look-see, I got the PDF in that section of my website so that people can read along or just read it by themselves and not have to hear my annoying voice. But it's just really good to know what they have planned, because there's a whole shitload of things like macro reset, micro reset, like different aspects of it that they go through and then they talk about the workplace and how they're going to revolutionize the technology and use the biometric IDs and all of that. I don't remember if the vaccine passport was part of it. It doesn't even matter if it's a vaccine passport, because it's going to be connected to everything. It's the internet of everything. So everyone's just going to be connected all the time to this cloud. And it will never be penetrated. Don't worry about your information getting leaked or anything, like what's happening already with the cyber attacks that they're creating right now. It's hilarious what's going on.
All right.
Quite sci-fi movie-esque, circa 90s.
Hey, Elle, we have a comment from the comment section, and a question. And so I figured I would direct the question to you. Chris, would you like to read it? My glasses are a little blurry. Sorry.
Yeah, I got you. Signs variant Mona, what's up? Has anyone heard the question? L is has anyone heard the reasons for the slowdown of the FDA approval of any vaccine after the hundreds of millions already administered?
Appreciate Signs trying to write it out so we don't get pulled or yanked or whatever. Appreciate that. The wording.
That's great. That.
Mm-hmm.
Up is down is up. FDA, I don't know. I think they're waiting for some checks. I don't really know. That's my really cynical side. You know, when they paused the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, whatever. When they paused that shot,
Waxing.
like looked into it, and then they found all of this horrible information about one of the factories. I don't even remember where it was.
I'll be right back, guys.
Okay.
But they found all this, these safety protocols were like not followed in a factory, and then literally the next day they said, "Okay, we're all clear on that. So go ahead and administer those things to people." So I think that's hilarious that they had already like looked into it. That makes me think. See, here it is. Yeah, about Baltimore factory. Luckily, I did this on my podcast, so I can just get that article up and give you the source, ktla.com.
Okay.
FDA inspection found problems at Baltimore factory producing Johnson & Johnson vax. It says here that they had a 13-page report detailing findings from its just completed inspection of the idled Emergent Biosciences factory, which you should know if you followed Whitney Webb's work, all about that organization. So then after that, literally the next day, so this is literally on April 21st, 2021 posted. I go back to the next thing, and that is FDA and CDC lift recommended pause on Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine, and that's April 23rd. Okay, a couple of days later. Literally 2 days later, the check cleared and all is fine. So back to normal.
Wow.
So it's not, there's just connections that you make, and you're like, come on now. There's got to be some
Which is
wheeling and dealing.
no, which explains the huge push in the newspaper about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and it's about to expire, and you got millions of people not taking it. Why aren't they taking it? That tracks. Clinical studies last till 2023, 2025, depending on vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
The Eco Health Alliance thing with Peter Daszak, I think it was the USAID, goes from 2014 to 2020. Shit, I forgot. 2024.
2024. Yeah, it looks like that's
years left on that contract. And then there's the DTRA funded the Eco Health Alliance too, which is a secret organization within the Pentagon. So you can't make this up. What is it?
wow.
This Defense Threat Reduction Agency. The Defense
It's amazing.
Threat Agency. And they give money to them and Interpol. So they work with Interpol and something in Africa.
And didn't you say DARPA was involved also?
No, not with Eco Health Alliance.
Okay.
That I know of.
Not with them. Okay.
Okay.
I don't think so, but I don't remember exactly all the contracts I saw.
But they
So
were.
they could have been snuck in there or something.
But they were involved with they are involved in the Great Reset though.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. That's I just
They're
want to
at
make
the
sure.
forefront.
And for those who are not familiar with DARPA, could you kind of break it down for the audience? Let them know, or just a reminder for those out there who do know but might need a refresher.
The DARPA is. Let me get the whole thing. The Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, and they've been around since 1958.
Like since the 50s.
Yep, 1958.
Annual budget.
And DARPA works on a lot of things. Like there's a lot of projects that they work on, years in advance, and it's kind of like drones and all that other kind of shit. They work on that, play with it for the longest time before it rolls out. They're the ones who come up with a whole too many things to name. Just go to DARPA and just look them up.
And it's kind of funny the fact that Elle is in Hollywood and DARPA, they kind of mock you through some of the stuff in Hollywood movies. For instance, I know most of you all saw Aliens. I mean, not Aliens, but Independence Day. And in Independence Day, when they're like, how do they fund all this stuff? And they're like, do you really think it's $10,000 for a screwdriver, and $50,000, for a wrench. That's how they fund all of these different things. They bid out to these supposed low bid contracts, and then give them, which really they're not low bid contracts. What they are just exclusive contracts. Exactly.
I want to talk about that because that's been big on the internet recently. The Nazi scientist thing, Operation Paperclip. For some reason it just became like really big news on the internet.
Weird how that's just popped up all of a sudden, and
yeah, it did. It just popped up out of nowhere.
Talk about that. I mean,
Well, also you have to remember, because we have Space Force. They're talking about UFOs, so that's a good time to revisit Paperclip and what it stood for, what they did, what they do, and the main agency they're tied to, which is NASA, right? So it's not a bad thing that Paperclip is popped back up.
Well, what I noticed overall, and this is kind of something kind of within the topic, on topic, and off topic at the same time. It seems like just all over the world, all of these different things that have happened in the past are all starting to be brought up and uncovered, all like at the same time. Like we have some of that Operation Paperclip stuff going on. We have I don't know if people have heard what happened in Canada, but they found on these native, old, and so on the old school, hundreds of outbreaks. So all of these things all over the world are starting to pop up. We're starting to ask questions. Hey, Chris, I think we got all of these.
I thought it was me. That's why I muted.
Oh no, yeah, it fixed. It was Chris, but a lot of these different issues all over the world, not just in America, Canada, down in Mexico, Germany. I know this has been controversial last year. I won't say it, but I'm pretty sure everybody out there is smart enough to figure out what I'm talking about. A lot of high-profile so-called African Americans have been getting in trouble, for making references or even looking into certain things that happened in Germany a time ago. And what's interesting to me is in school, I was only taught, what pretty much most kids were taught about that time period and what happened in Germany. And the people who I heard who were the biggest doubters and questioners of it were people from that very community. They were the biggest ones who I kept hearing have questions about certain things. Not saying things didn't happen at all, but saying that some things didn't happen exactly the way that they were laid out. And as I started to see certain things, I realized that there were multiple sides of what was going on there. And we have to look at every situation that way. It's not always one-sided. So sorry to go off on a little, slant off to the side there, but just something I thought was kind of interesting, bringing up Operation Paperclip, going back into that time period. So sorry about that. Back to the Great Reset. By the way, we have a couple of our favorite friends in the building. We have Kelly and Thomas. So welcome all. We have Elle with us. So we're having a good conversation about the Great Reset. And back to you, Elle.
Could I just make a fact check of myself, because I like to keep myself as accountable as possible?
Of course.
I did find the original article, biospace.com, which was a find. I can't wait to go over this on my podcast. I have to save it because it's so juicy. But I said that there was a contract with the EcoHealth Alliance. It was with NIH, of course, the National Institute of Health, and it was for $7.5 million grant, and it goes until 2024. So that was reinstated, and there was a whole big mess of information about that I somehow found online very easily. In August 2020, they were talking about it quite a bit in the media, and it wasn't a taboo subject yet. So it's funny how it's proved again. And then political, but I don't want to get far into that.
Could you go into that? How was Trump involved?
Well, he had Trump related is going to be social media. So the way that they say things, it's going to be politicized because Trump. It's always about the last week, making a big stink about the Eco Health Alliance, and so they were like, well, reinstate the grant because it was political reasons that we ended it. So we ended it.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I think hey, Chris,
So a letter sent in July by NIH Deputy Director for Extramural Research Michael Lauer to Eco Health Alliance stated it was reinstating the grant of $7.5 million, but also suspending it immediately until the alliance met certain conditions, including providing a sample of the pandemic coronavirus that Wuhan Institute of Virology used to determine the viral genetic sequence, arrange for an outside inspection of the institute and its records with specific attention to addressing the question of whether WIV staff had SARS-CoV-2 in their possession prior to December 2019. The Alliance had to explain restrictions at WIV, including diminished cell phone traffic in October 2019, and the evidence that there may have been roadblocks surrounding the facility from October 14th to 19th, 2019, which just so happens, I did some research, that's around the time that they did the military games in Wuhan, so it's kind of funny, the World Military Games, and it must provide the NIH with WIV's responses to the 2018 Department of State cables regarding safety concerns. And then Eco Health Alliance said in a statement at the time that NIH's letter cynically reinstates and it instantly suspends the Eco Health Alliance's funding, then attempts to impose impossible and irrelevant conditions that will effectively block us from continuing this critical work. So then they bring in Trump for the reason that didn't go through. And then Anthony Fauci said the Creed Network, what does that mean? I can't remember. Oh, yeah. Nope, that's his thing. Anyway, the Creed Network, I don't remember what it says. Oh, Centers for Research in Emerging Infectious Diseases, or CREED. Okay. That the CREED Network will enable early warnings of emerging diseases wherever they occur, which will be critical to rapid responses. And then they bring in Christian, who's in the news now, the Scripps Research Institute. It's everything in this article. In La Jolla, California, also received a grant and will focus on West Africa. Christian Anderson, an immunologist at Scripps, said, by improving our knowledge of how new and old pathogens emerge while building out our capacity for detecting them rapidly, we're going to be in a much better place. There's just a wealth of information on there. You just find the most random shit on these web pages for like bio whatever. Just everything that you would want. August 28th, 2020. That's when that was.
Wow.
Old news.
I know that was a ton of stuff. Chris, I know you got questions. I can see you're biting at the ghost. So go ahead, ask Elle your question.
I mean, she just gave us a ton of information. Well, since we're talking about like the tech world and things of that nature, let me ask you, how do they plan on? What do you think from your studying of the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset? What do you think is their plan to microchip the people? How are they going to get that done? Is it going to be done via another COVID scare, or are they going to market it like a new piece of technology?
I think it would be most likely like something that you would want. They would tie it into something like somebody suggested, this is not my suggestion at all, but that it could be where they could wipe out student debt, but you have to get the microchip, like that sort of thing. Like, you make it enticing to you know, keep going with the universal basic income kind of scenario, and then eventually people will. I mean, they're already clamoring to get the passport. A lot of these idiots. So it's like it won't take long to just put in that chip, and then they won't even care. Again, the people who were saying, "Oh, this passport's never going to happen. It's never going to happen," they are now just like, "Shut up and get the passport." You know, measles, mumps, all that shit. Like, all these countries require passports. It's not weird. It's been around forever. So they always will make concessions. They will make excuses for doing stuff that doesn't make sense, literally, for a less than 1% deadly virus, which we don't even know exactly because of the PCR test.
Emmanuel, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I had a question. Do you think the rise in crypto being used as a form of payment is tied into the Great Reset as well? Because of course, from the video that we saw, I think we saw like a couple of weeks ago, we did see the microchip thing where, you know, he could pay by tapping the back of his palm, right? When we saw that video. So
we did that one on the show, remember? Oh no, go ahead, Manuel.
No, that was my question. I was like, do you feel that it ties into that? And well, she answered my other question. My other question was, what type of incentive do you feel will be needed to move into this, like, you know, pay with your like microchip future? But my first question is, you know, do you think the rise of trying to make cryptocurrency the new all over the world currency is tied into the microchip theory that you're speaking about?
It definitely is, because it's going to be connected to one device, and that includes money.
Yeah.
And they want digital money. So the more they like say stuff about these cryptocurrencies, just know that they've got their own currency that they're working on at the same time. So they don't want any competition. That's what that's about. And also, Bitcoin was probably co-opted a long time ago, like before it even happened. So that's just one of them. Like, they don't want multiple traced digital currencies. They want their own cloud currency, like something that will be manipulated by them, and they can just cut you off whenever they want. Because it's all about control.
Because there's like, I think as of my count, there's like 25 plus cryptocurrencies right now. So my speculation is that there will probably be an obvious push into, I guess, you know, kind of like a media consolidation, like a currency consolidation, moving into what, like 3, 4, 5 separate bits of currency, and, you know, people just operate from there. So, but yeah, I wanted to ask somebody, because of course El Salvador moved officially into using Bitcoin. So if we're talking about that, how much longer before we see other countries be able to say, oh, I'm using Bitcoin, or, oh, I'm using, like, I think the U.S. has their own form of Bitcoin, actually. I need to look into it.
Well, they
make sure
the Pentagon is actually already spent money invested in research and creating their own. So I'm not sure how far along they are. For all we know, they put out those press releases, and more than likely they've already done it. It's just to be a smokescreen. So when they start talking about it, people are not as alarmed, and it gives them time to just force through the agenda, which they already plan on getting through. But to make it seem like it's, oh, well, we don't know, and it's all this debate, and everybody's not sure about it. Because if everybody's in agreement, and everybody, of course, in the population would be like, hell no, we can't trust the government, definitely. If they all agree on this shit, it's something up. So they got to show some kind of, well, this person's for it. I might be for it. They got to show all these different, this controversy in a sense, to make it seem like it's, hey, one side will choose, that divide and conquer. So in turn, you'll force a certain percentage more to take it or be about it because they're going against the other political camp, whether it be Republicans, Democrats, whatever, atheists versus religious. You get what I'm saying? So on and so forth. I wanted to address that comment which Kelly said up there. She said this shit is making the Minority Report look tame. Going into also the Minority Report, I saw a report not that long ago. I reported on my other channel where they're actually trying to use a lot of the software which tracks us through our phones and through all of our communication devices to log and store what we're looking at, how much time we spend on YouTube, how much time you spend talking to your mom, which places do you more often go to eat at, which stores do you often shop at, how long are you at the store, all of these different things. And they're trying to put it into algorithms to try to predict our behavior. This is what the article literally said, that's the goal. And so that's the purpose of everybody. If everybody's been wondering why they've been storing all this information on us, that's why. It might not be in a Minority Report in the sense of some oracles laying in a pool coming up with visions and a ball rolls out, but it's the same approach.
That's funny that you mentioned that because I was looking on the DARPA website at like their latest projects, and one of them is called Active Social Engineering Defense, ASED. So it says, we call attacks on humans social engineering because they manipulate or engineer users into performing desired actions or divulging sensitive information. The most general social engineering attacks simply attempt to get unsuspecting internet users to click on malicious links. More focused attacks attempt to elicit sensitive information such as passwords or private information from organizations, or steal things of value from particular individuals by earning unwarranted trust. These attacks always have an ask, a desired behavior that the attacker wants to induce from the victim. To do this, they need trust from the victim, which is typically earned through interaction or co-opted via a spoofed or stolen identity. Depending on the level of sophistication, these attacks will go after individuals, organizations, or wide swaths of the population. Social engineering attacks work because it is difficult for users to verify each and every communication they receive. Moreover, verification requires a level of technical expertise that most users lack. To compound the problem, the number of users that have access to privileged information is often large, creating a commensurately large attack surface. The Active Social Engineering Defense Program aims to develop the core technology to enable the capability to automatically identify, disrupt, and investigate social engineering attacks. If successful, the ASED technology will do this by actively detecting attacks, intervening in communications between users and potential attackers, and coordinating investigations into the source of the attacks. So they're working on that. It's all for us, I'm sure.
Yeah, I left a comment up on the screen which Thomas asked. I guess I'll put that back to you and Emmanuel. So I guess I'll have Emmanuel read the comment and then I guess give his thoughts on it so you can hear it, Elle, and then I guess you can answer back.
Okay. Thomas asked, are these cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoins the equivalent to the old gold standard, that the value grows or decreases with the economy? Is it digital currency? Anyone? Okay. First of all, the market is too volatile to be able to the market is too volatile for it to be able to situate on like one specific thing. I mean, they fluctuate for every goddamn reason, any goddamn reason, like the one that Elon's all about, right? It fluctuates with whatever he says or whatever he does or wherever he goes. And then there's another one that does that's literally called Stop Elon, right? Where it fluctuates up and down with whatever he does, like literally based off of anything he does. So there are so many variables throughout cryptocurrency that you can never really tack it on the one variable compared to something like the old gold standard. That's my take on it, basically.
Elle, what's your thoughts on that?
I feel like Bitcoin was possibly a psyop to get people not to look at the gold standard like as an option and to go to digital currency. I think that was the whole point in the beginning. I have no proof of this, but seeing the way things happened with indie media people and how they started to use it after a while, and then kind of didn't talk about gold anymore. It's interesting, but I don't know if the gold standard actually is something that we should be looking at as the future currency either. I don't know, because I haven't looked too far into that specific subject, but I just feel like Bitcoin from the beginning, when it first started, when I first heard about it, it was connected to criminals in the very beginning, and it was very shady, and then it eventually got like cleaned up, and they clean up certain things and say like, hey, you can do this now, like they did with pot. Like, pot is bad, we hate pot. Hey, now you can make pot, and you can not go to jail for it in certain places, and keep doing what you're doing. So eventually something is eventually going to be like used in the future, and they are going to go along with it, and build their own competition to it. And I think that's sort of what happened with Bitcoin from then to now. It's kind of become more like close to the dollar. Like, so many people use Bitcoin now, so it's not even that weird. But now they're going after it again, and it's just like, why? So it must be a competition thing. It must be that like they don't need it anymore, so they're gonna toss it aside and say the environmental BS that they're saying when they're going in jets everywhere. It's hilarious. But politicians, yo.
Chris, what's some of your thoughts on it?
At first, at first I thought it was really just an effort from people to, try to get away from the central banks, right? But, looking back at, we have the ability to look back now, and we can tailor our thoughts now based on the information we're able to see. It does seem a little bit like a psyop to get us used to digital currency. But at the same time, I'm not against a little bit of progress in that realm, right? Using digital money. The only problem is, like everything else, is who controls that, right? It's just kind of like even with the gold standard, like Elle just mentioned. We can talk about the gold standard all day, but at the same time, who controls all the fucking gold? Who owns who has, who owns the mass amounts of it? It's the same people that control the banks and control the armies. So it's like, even if we went to a gold standard, we wouldn't necessarily be negatively affecting the people that we would like to negatively affect. You know what I'm saying?
And
Bartering.
I saw
Correct.
I wanted to circle back to in there, because I have a little bit more direct theory, and I'll just say, take it as a theory. So, what's the purpose of the chip? Well, the purpose of the chip is to conform everybody to a system where everything is so-called simplified, and the way they sell it as a temptation. Like what we covered, I covered. How long ago was that, Chris? Maybe 6 months ago, when we were covering the chip, and in some country, I believe it might have been Spain or Portugal. Might have been Portugal, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but anyway, what the display was showing was the gentleman was having the chip inserted and showing the applications of the chip, how he was going to use it in his life, and how they want to market the chip from their own mouths. What he was able to do once he had the chip implanted was he was able to use the chip to open his house. So it had a chip that would censor all of his door locks from his house to, his garage to his car to his business. He had all of his medical records on there. He had the deed to his house. He had all of his banking information, all of his insurance information, and all of his family's information on that one chip also. And this is the chip which they want to be able to promote to more people through their own words. Then you factor in a whole nother chip which has been going on. What is it called? I think they're calling it biohacking, where people have a chip inserted into their arm, where that chip is set up to monitor their body. What is it? Their body vitals. So if they're dehydrated, it alerts them and they have an update on their phone to be able to go through all their different deficiencies, which vitamins that they need to eat, what they're eating too much of, all those things like that. And so that combination of knowing everything about what's going on with your body, also having all of your information centralized on this one chip, banking, etc. And then it would be, just like your phone. Instead of needing your phone on you to locate you, now that chip is in you. So you're always on location. Now going into the minority report kind of, escalation to that type of technology. If a person is implanted in that way, instantly you could cut them off from their home. You can wipe that away. They're homeless. You could make them instantly bankrupt. You would have their DNA, so you could use their DNA to plant in crimes if you were high up and nefarious. You could also, because you know their location, with that chip having monitoring in it, you also could be able to target that location, so you could cue in on different cameras to literally follow somebody around to keep them on camera at all times. And so, with that much camera footage and knowing about the deep fakes and all that, remember, this is conspiracy theory. This is just going to the possible escalations of that kind of technology with the technology we already have out there. With the deep fake technology, and you have somebody walking around an area, you can put somebody on any crime scene at that point if you really wanted to. And so, it gets dicey. What were you gonna say, Chris?
So I'm looking in the comment section, right? And I see there's a bit of a discussion about Bitcoin and some people saying like, it's only dudes and bros or dupes who use it. And I think somebody said, you don't want QAnon millionaires. Here's the thing, that to trade in that stuff is open to anybody. So you should not leave it to the realm of the likes of QAnon or conservatives or whatever. Anybody or their mother can go and purchase this and make some real money off of Dogecoin, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and the other various cryptocurrencies that exist currently. So it is worth your while to look into it as opposed to just leaving it to, people who you dislike. So remember, just don't fall into that trap of just thinking, oh, this is for right-wing people and I shouldn't be involved in it. If you can make some money on it, I suggest you do it, and you can.
I wanted to share this comment real quick. I see Gamer for Life in here. Sorry about what I heard. I see in the chat you said that you were kicked out of Gamer's channel. So that sucks. I try to never ban anybody for the most part, even when people are assholes to me. So sorry about that. Glad to have you in here. And I see met our new friend, Tapir, Sweet and Sour. What do you identify? Because I don't want to say anything wrongly if I say he or she when you make a point. So if you could put that in there, just that would be great. But back to what you were saying, Chris. Or who was speaking? Sorry, who did I interrupt?
It was Chris. Chris just finished.
Okay. I guess so. We'll let Elle get back to breaking down where she was at, because I know Elle. She definitely has a list.
Oh yeah. Well, I had just looked at the. I don't want to bring that up. Never mind. I wanted to talk about the military world games. Like I mentioned that before. When I said October 14th to October 19th, 2019, in the NIH article, or this biospace article that I put in the link to in the chat. So I had heard about the military world games, but I never went to the website and checked it out. So I finally found like some random website. I just looked it up, and then they had a lovely link to that. Or did they? Maybe they didn't. Anyway, I ended up at the website. Nevertheless, which is called dvidshub.net. And then it's /feature/2019 MIL with a capital M and G with a capital G AMES World Games. So the 2019 CISM Military World Games were held in Wuhan, China on, what date was this? I have to go down. October 18, 2019. You can't make this shit up because that's also the day of the Event 201 exercise at Johns Hopkins University's Center for Health Security, put on by the World Economic Forum and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and also including the CDC Director of China, George Gao, in the exercise as himself, I guess. But it's kind of interesting because it's the U.S. Armed Forces, it's sports, it's lame, but it was literally in Wuhan, China at that time. And that's just so weird. It's like a few weeks before we knew about, or several weeks before we knew about the virus. Well, the people in charge who broke the virus through made it possible for us to know about it, I guess. Defense Virtual Information Distribution Service is DVIDS. That's what that stands for. So it has like a whole like picture gallery of the games and what was done. Pretty boring, like Olympic shit, opening ceremonies, all that jazz.
Yeah, Chris has it up on the screen for you.
At the same time.
Yeah, this is what they're talking about, the Olympic Games like type stuff, which they have going on. And that's what they like to do with a lot of these organizations. They like to make it look all fun and wholesome and show this kind of more friendly, competitive atmosphere and things which seem non-threatening, no matter what it's going to be, whether it's sports or whatever cover they come up with. Literally, the Red Cross has been used to plot some of the craziest, like, government conspiracies and coups and stuff, so you don't even want to go into that. But that's what these people like to do. They mask themselves in a good name and do all kind of other stuff in that name.
I think it would be really cool if the military, if they would resist, that would be the best, because the U.S. military is everywhere. And if all of the military members, in a perfect world, of course, decided, fuck this shit, I'm out, and all like gave up, working for the big banks and being cannon fodder, then the world would be a better place. But of course, that's in a utopia that doesn't exist. But that would be where it would start. Like that would be a good start for the resistance, is in the military itself, because we have like over 800 bases across the world. So,
well, I agree.
It would make a huge difference.
I agree with you. The only problem with that is they've already worked out so many scenarios to put people in the situations that the military is a tempting option to get out of it. I mean, I'll use myself, for example. School, I didn't really focus on doing a lot of my homework like I should, even though I studied quite a bit. So eventually I ticked off my teachers because I wouldn't do my homework and just wanted to pass by taking tests. And so they gave me a specific grading scale to make me fail if I didn't do my homework instead of just passing tests. And so my grades lacked in some of my classes. Well, my mindset was, I'm going to make it in sports, so I don't really need to worry about this. No matter which sport it is, I'm making it in sports, at least to college on sports. Well, what you don't plan when you think like that is what happens when you get hurt. And so once I get hurt, that threw that plan all the way out the window. And now I'm like, okay, I didn't do that well on my grades, even though I'm about to graduate, didn't focus that much on academics in college. I mean, what I would do academically in college or what I wanted to do actually in college. I was just thinking about sports. And so what do you have? Military recruiters telling you, hey, we can give you money. You can go to college. You can see the world, man. You can see all kind of places you would never could possibly go to. Especially living some of the areas I grew up in a lot of single parent households and very, very impoverished neighborhoods. Most of those kids don't even get outside of their city. And so if you tell them, hey, I can take you from, say, Birmingham, Alabama, and you can be sitting in San Diego and not that far from Hollywood and be able to have an opportunity to see all these stars and celebrities, or I can send you all the way to Barcelona, Spain, or I can send you to Brazil or China, and you get to see all of these things. And I'm going to give you all of this trade experience. So when you get out, you're going to be better than we had you before. And now you can get a good career and kick off your life in a positive direction. And that gets very hard to turn down when you've already put people in a depressed state. And whether people want to say, hey, you put them there, or they put themselves there, maybe their parents screwed up here and that, drug addicts, whatever, whatever reason they got to that point, there's still that underclass of society, which is in that category where the military is always going to be an appealing option because it gets them out of, the mess that they're around. I mean, say if they live in an area where there's a bunch of gangs and they were affiliated with a gang and they want to get away from it. The only way they might have money to get away from there is join the military. And that takes you away to some other city or state. So I feel like they always, because they've worked on basically creating a caste system, an invisible caste system, if you will, where we don't necessarily see the strings and where the divisions are, because we might work in an area and never know how much each person makes at the job. So you don't realize that you're not in the same category, even though you're socializing and hanging out with these people. They might even be your neighbors. But we don't realize the divisions because it's kind of an invisible caste system. And if you always have that bottom class, you can always find ways to exploit them, whether it's military or whatever, I don't know. Could just be my thoughts. What do you think, Elle?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say like.
Well, I was.
In
Oh.
addition to what I said. What's that?
Oh, who wanted to go? I guess yeah.
No, you're good. Elle can finish.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say that they probably prepared for that if there is resistance from the military. That's what the drones are for, and then they're gonna make drones like do it themselves, bomb people themselves. They don't even need humans at that point. They'll have the AI technology that they can use to bomb people all over the world for profit. So it's going to be a moot point anyway. That's why I'm saying in a utopia. We live in a dystopia, so I'm not stupid enough to think that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Just a fun scenario to think about in an alternate universe.
You see that one, Chris?
They would never let us. They would never let us pay the debt off. You crazy? If we paid the debt,
Never, ever.
I'm gonna read it out for Elle.
Me or Chris?
Oh, either one. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Thomas says Kelly at Kelly. I bet if the USA slashes the military budget by 90%, nationalizes resources on public lands, cuts corporate welfare, raises taxes on the rich, we can pay that $29 trillion debt within 15 years. And then LOL.
In that world, yes. But like Elle said so eloquently, we're not in a utopia. We're in a dystopia.
Everything is inverted.
About 2001.
Oh, what was that you said? Everything since 2001?
2001 is where they came up with the Space Force and the drones and everything in the document Rebuilding America's Defenses, which every person who's a conspiracy theorist should know by heart. PNAC, Project for a New America.
Look, PNAC laid out the vision in the 90s, and when people talked about that in like 99 or 2000, it was like you were nuts for even talking about that. I remember I was in college at that time, and it was like, yo, y'all seeing all this shit these people writing? And sure enough, what was that, a year or two later, there's buildings burning in Manhattan. There's a plane crashed in Pennsylvania, and there's a hole in the Pentagon. Of course, there's no wings or whatever, but we won't get into that right now. But they laid it all out, and they had their event to make sure that their goals could be met. Because without that day, they're not able to go into the Middle East. They're not able to go into Iraq and Afghanistan specifically anyway. Not at that time.
September 2000 is actually the time that they did that they published it.
Well, fellas, I had a question. So the Space Force was was basically brought up in 2001. That would be the time of that'd be the time of Bush, right?
Yeah.
Was there what was the name of that space crash that happened in like the early 2000s? Like I think it was like after 2001, basically. Do you remember the plane? I think the plane came in and it burned up on reentry or something like that. I can't remember it, but I know it happened in like the early 21st century.
Sorry, I was reading the comments at the same time. Are you familiar with that, Elle?
I only know the Challenger. I don't know that specific incident. That's from the 80s.
Is it the Columbia?
Are you talking about the one which blew up and supposedly everybody died?
Mm-hmm. Not the Challenger one. The other one. It didn't start in. They were coming in the reentry and it burned, and there was like there was something wrong with the panel or whatever, and it burned up in the air.
February 1st, 2003.
Yeah. I was always wondering about that. I always found that really particularly weird that it happened. But then you brought up the fact that the Space Force was created in 2001. So then 2 years later that happened, and then after that, no space. There was no funding after that. There was like no talk about it, no funding about it. I don't remember hearing anything about it after that.
No, remember I reported they did get funding after that. That's when Harry Reid at the time, before he went out, Harry Reid, and I can't remember who the senator was from Alaska, but they were pushing and pushing and pushing on that. And they start trying to get more information released on various different UFO information, trying to get it declassified. And while pushing for that, they slipped, I can't remember how much money it was, but it was millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions, I think 40 or 50 million. They slipped into a budget to start an agency that would be over just over monitoring all that stuff alone. And so they were already building the Space Force, as in trying to actually put, I guess, spaceships and orbits and satellites and stuff in space. So that's separate. And then this organization is to monitor perceived threats that might be, not from this realm.
Okay. I thought when the accident happened at the time, I thought there was some underlying reason behind it, but ultimately it was just maybe it really was just it might have really just been like a faulty a faulty plate at the bottom and everybody did burn up, but I just found it particularly weird that there wasn't any evidence. There wasn't any, you just saw it burn up and nobody remembers it. I realize that now. Like nobody really remembers that it happened, but I remember it and nobody else really does. So that's why I asked about
You never know. Some men
why I
of
asked
black
about the whole thing.
might have happened. They might have hit us with that neuralizer.
Yeah, they only talk about the Challenger thing. That's it.
And I'm curious. I'll ask everybody on the panel, and I will say this just for the disclaimer of being careful with the live stream. Whoever monitors, so they won't be a butthead to us. This is just talking theory, just talking theories on stuff we've heard. Putting a disclaimer out there. In no way are we inferring that the government is involved in any kind of conspiracy, that they have done anything or hid anything. We are just talking about theories. So I will proceed with the question. I've seen pictures of people who look very, 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 very similar to the people who supposedly died on the Challenger. Now, what's the possibility that they somehow faked and altered images of the people? Or I'm trying to figure that out, how that works. Did everybody have a twin, or did they only send astronauts who were triplets? Or I'm trying to figure this out. Is cloning technology like available to our government? Is what's going on here? Because I've seen video of some of these people literally alive and well who look strangely similar to people who were supposed to be millions of pieces in the air. Now,
Marcus, look, let me tell you, there's a couple of videos out there, and I'm just amazed how many of those astronauts, or whatever you want to call them, how many of those astronauts had twins? Because there's a bunch of them who had twins, and they went on to like do something similar as what the astronaut was doing prior to it. So it's just very funny. If you just look, if you look up the what is it? The Challenger, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just look up the Challenger explosion and the astronauts, and then use maybe DuckDuckGo to search for their names, and you can see some of them are still. I mean, people who look just like them are still alive.
Yes. I mean, maybe the government decided, you know what, we just want to mess with the conspiracy theory. So what we're going to do is we're going to hire lookalikes, do a little bit of cosmetic surgery, so that they look so much like them that we're going to just really mess with these people's tinfoil type thinking. What's your thoughts on that, Elle?
Oh, well, while that was going on, I was kind of like searching through the Rebuilding America's Defenses document, trying to find the information about the Space Force thing that they had. And then also there's some interesting stuff that's about biowarfare, which might be interesting to look at as well in light of recent events. For the space thing, it was going to be space comm. So in the future, it will be necessary to unite the current space comm vision for control of space to the institutional responsibilities and interests of a separate military service. And it says, to ensure America's control of space in the near term, the minimum requirements are to develop a robust capability to transport systems to space, carry on operations once there, and service and recover space systems as needed. As outlined by Space Command, carrying out this program would include a mix of reusable and expandable launch vehicles and vehicles that can operate within space, including space tugs to deploy, reconstitute, replenish, refurbish, augment, and sustain space systems. But over the longer term, maintaining control of space will inevitably require the application of force. Hey, there's the word. Both in space and from space, including but not limited to anti-missile defenses and defensive systems capable of protecting U.S. and allied satellites. Space control cannot be sustained in any other fashion with conventional land, sea, or air force, or by electronic warfare. This eventuality is already recognized by official U.S. national space policy, which states that the Department of Defense shall maintain a capability to execute the mission areas of space support, force enhancement, space control, and force application. So there's your proof that Trump had nothing to do with this shit. he's just reading like the script from before. He's doing the playbook from before, way before all these other people came before him as well. So I don't know if you want me to get into the biowarfare part of it or continue with the Challenger thing. I think definitely they have the capability of just shooting shit out of space or not letting it.
I was gonna say, hold that thought. Chris has something to add on to what you're talking about here on the screen.
So what I pulled up on the screen for everybody who's watching, this is basically just like an overview of what the PNAC Project for New American Century they put out in 97, right? So I just did a quick search for the space. In it, what happened?
So was that Bill Kristol?
Oh yeah. It's all of them. Bill Kristol, Wolfowitz, Doug Zackheim, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Louis Libby. It's all of them. So with that being said, though, so I pulled this up to show that even in 97, they were in their discussion of overthrowing Iraq, called for the control of space through a new U.S. space forces, the political control of the internet, subversion of any growth of political power, and even allies like China. They wanted regime change in other places like China, North Korea, Libya, etc. We can see that this was written in 97. Look, we're in 21. Everything written in this damn report is something they've either done or tried. And what I found funny, what's tucked into here, what I find funny is it also mentions that advanced forms of biological warfare that can target specific genotypes may transform biological warfare from the realm of terror to a politically useful tool. Again, that shit sounds like what? Coronavirus in 2021.
I have more on that. The actual document. Although it may take several decades for the process of transformation to unfold, in time, the art of warfare on air, land, and sea will be vastly different than it is today. And combat likely will take place in new dimensions, in space, cyberspace, what are we hearing now? And perhaps the world of microbes. Air warfare may no longer be fought by pilots manning tactical fighter aircraft sweeping the skies of opposing fighters, but a regime dominated by long-range, stealthy unmanned craft. On land, the clash of massive combined armored forces may be replaced by the dashes of much lighter, stealthier, and information-intensive forces, augmented by fleets of robots, some small enough to fit in soldiers' pockets. Control of the sea could be largely determined not by fleets of surface combatants and aircraft carriers, but from land and space-based systems, forcing navies to maneuver and fight underwater. Space itself will become a theater of war as nations gain access to space capabilities and come to rely on them Further, the distinction between military and commercial space systems, combatants and non-combatants, will become blurred. Information systems will become an important focus of attack, particularly for U.S. enemies seeking to short-circuit sophisticated American forces, and advanced forms of biological warfare that can target specific genotypes may transform biological warfare from the realm of terror to a politically useful tool, like you said. So that's like the whole paragraph right there, just for context.
I have a theory if we can get to my turn.
Sure. Emmanuel, yeah, sure. Weigh in.
Okay. The concept that the wars would happen on like different fronts or whatever. And this is purely in the realm of speculation. I am not saying anything would particularly happen or anything like that. But my top prevalent theory is that they are preparing the younger generation for the war, for the multi-plane war that we're talking about. Because I remember, and this must have been like a year, maybe two. This must have been like a while ago. And I know Trump was president around the time, but I was working as a teacher's assistant at a school, and they always do that CNN. They always do that CNN and 10 stuff, right? Where they basically say, where they basically give the news for the kids and keep them informed or whatever. But they went into this whole spiel about space war. There's a war that's going to happen in space. They made a big old deal about it. Like countries were going to do it, nations were going to do it. And my question was like, okay, the people you're telling this to are between the ages of what, like 11? At the time, it was what, like between the ages of 11 and 17. I mean, like, why are you telling them that? Because usually it wasn't stuff like that. It's usually like, like positive fluff pieces, stuff like that. So that always confused me. But yeah, my primary theory was that they're preparing the next generation to say there will be war. There will be war. There will be war on multiple fronts. And you need to be prepared for it, because they made it seem all cool and stuff, but I was just like, I just found it weird that they were telling a bunch of kids that. It wasn't like they were showing it on like the evening news or something like that. This was like in the morning, and it appealed to who? Like little kids, like adolescents and stuff like that. So that was what my theory was.
I want to break that down for y'all a little bit more. What Emmanuel said, it might have slipped by. I don't think you guys caught it. They are basically vaguely telling kids to prepare for World War III. A war on all fronts. That would mean all nations or most of the nations are involved. That would technically be a world war, right? What happens in World War? Mass casualties, mass destruction. They're basically warning these kids of almost like an Armageddon type situation to prepare for at a child's age. Why are they doing that? Is it something they know? You tell me.
And they sensitize them with the video games to the war video games.
Yep. Oh, what were you gonna say, Chris?
I was gonna say it's all part of the programming and brainwashing, right? It was just like what they did for the soldiers going into World War II. The war bonds and all the commercials you could think of. Same thing for Vietnam. So, it's just getting these kids, it's just getting your next generation of soldiers ready to fight a war, if at all. But what's funny is, like, y'all are not launching any major ground operations against each other, but you're going to fly up into space and then shoot each other there. That shit doesn't even make sense to me. The logic behind it is dumb as hell. So clearly it's a money grab, and they just want us to think that, they're going to carry on their war that they're not waging on on terra firma, as they say, but they just want us to think that they're going to do it in outer space. Okay.
Well, here I'll put this question out there in the chat, and I'll toss it back over to Elle to kind of carry on with the topic that we've been going into. But if you want to hear my biblical take, a little bit of prophecy. I know if Mona's still in the room, Mona likes likes when I go into prophecy. So if you guys want to hear it, put a 1 in the chat. If you don't want to hear it and just want to stick to everything, hit a 2. And if yes, I'll save it for the end and kind of go into a couple of things quickly, sum them up. If no, then we'll just keep on with the topic. So put the 1 in the chat if you want me to go into it later on. 2 in the chat if you don't want me to go into it right now. But yeah, sorry. Back to you, Elle.
Oh dear. What else? I don't know. Okay. The social engineering thing would be part of social media. So I think it's important as we go forward when we engage with certain accounts online that we be aware that there's a lot of paid accounts, there's a lot of trolls, there's a lot of people saying things that not a normal person would say in pretty much every thread nowadays. But you have to be aware that you don't know who that person is. So like people should just be more aware that anyone can do anything online. It doesn't mean that that's who they are and that's what they believe. Like maybe we believe it, but they don't all believe it, or they are paid not to believe certain things and they have to attack other people. Like there's a lot of bannings going on online on certain websites, and it's just good to keep in mind that not everyone is as dumb as they seem going forward.
I mean, my one of my teachers, in a sense, 2 of his pages got taken down within maybe the last 2 weeks, and he just had to create 2 new pages. Now, luckily for him, his name is out there, and he's able to jump back up to like a couple thousand subscribers already within like a week. But a lot of us, we're not able to do that because we haven't been able to get our names out there as much. So that's another way they kind of control these narratives on things. 3, you just share with me.
Well, the social media is very important, which is why Facebook was the first one that they had to go after, because the reliable part of the public that votes each time, they spend a lot of their time on Facebook, which is why we saw during the 2016 election, there was so much talk about the disinfo, misinfo. Got it. That's why they were worried about so much disinformation, misinformation on Facebook more than they were worried about it on Instagram or Twitter, because they know maybe some of us won't vote. Maybe we're too up on it to even participate. But they know that Facebook crowd, they are loyally going to vote, right? Because that's our aunties, that's our grandmas, that's our parents. Now, that's the reliable voting bloc. But you can see from the start of COVID, though, that they are now really trying to not just propagandize you, but to remove information from you. It's one thing if you tell me cigarettes are good, right? You tell me cigarettes are good, cigarettes are good, cigarettes are good. But now they won't even allow somebody to come on the platform to say, well, here's why cigarettes are bad. And here's the information and the data to show and prove this. That's a little more dangerous than even propagandizing people for something.
Yeah, exactly. I was wondering, did you want to expand some more on that, Elle?
Oh yeah, I've been reminding people about all of the propaganda in the past of the scientists and doctors and everything recommending things that do not help our health. In fact, hurt us, from heroin to cigarettes. It's the same old playbook every time. So it's like, how many times are you going to be lied to before you're like, oh, wait, I get it now. So I think it's important to be aware of the history and of the propaganda of what they did before and compare it to what's happening now, where you aren't allowed to say anything against it. It wasn't that way back then because they didn't have social media that had like word of mouth. So it was just a bunch of people spouting nonsense, like, hey, have a Camel, whatever. Hey, have a Winston, whatever the fuck. But, like, you know, go drink at work and shit. Like, they just did all kinds of things that was very normalized for that period. Also, that's another thing they do. They normalize something for a specific period, just like they normalize racism and slavery from that period when there were actual abolitionists and people who didn't like racism at the time. But we like to forget about those people because they weren't popular at the time. So we don't talk about them. We don't learn about them. So it's very important that we know who did what in the history of everything. And there's always going to be dissenters and people saying, hey, wait, this isn't the right information. And they're probably going to be labeled certain things, but it's going to come out, and throughout history, they're going to be like, then what is the word? I forgot the word, but people are going to like them eventually and understand them and what they were meant to do, what they were trying to do. Like Victoria Woodhull is like somebody that nobody knows, but she was an abolitionist. She ran for president. She was the first one before Hillary Clinton. They all acted like Hillary Clinton was the first nominee, which is not true. And her running mate was Frederick Douglass. He didn't really ask for it, but she like put him on the ballot as the vice president. So that's shit that was happening during slavery, like during a time when slavery was more normalized, and it was, you know, a progressive movement that she was involved in, the equal rights party, equal rights for everyone, la la la, and you know, she was free love, she was all that shit. She was a broker before it was, you know, it became like the big banks everywhere, and Wall Street started sucking the soul out of everyone. So, you know, she had a what did she have? She had a, what do they call it? She had a publication. She published a paper, and she actually attacked a politician and got sued for it. So she's a pretty badass character.
Well, that goes into something that I was talking about earlier today with a couple of people, that even when you look back through history, even slavery, there's so many complex layers if you really want to get into and talk about it. Because there were communities that were, though they might have been taking part in slavery, there might have been manipulation, there might have been forced to, they might have been put in a situation where either you do this or do that. So it's not as black and white as we like to talk about it, you know, no pun intended. But you know, there's different layers, and we all have to be mature enough to look at all the different layers of the information and not be afraid to confront some things where they might not be as comfortable for us to, you know, to talk about. I have a comment I have a question here from the chat for you specifically, Elle. It says, what is your most dire prediction for 2021?
I'm writing it right now.
I see we have Shadow Band in the chat also. Always good to see you, brother. But I am definitely curious about that because I have many different ways. I guess while she works on that, I saw a couple ones there. I saw a 3, which is interesting. I like the free thinkers out there, but I didn't see any 2. So I guess I will just paraphrase and sum through some things. If you guys want me to look this up in particular or give you the verses, ask me later on, and I can do that. But it was always funny to me that the government's been worried so much about, you know, UFOs and things like that. And all this information has been coming out of recent. And I go back to as a kid, and you think about the different Negro spirituals which they used to sing, like Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, Coming Forth to Carry Me Home. They already had a concept before they were flying planes of something flying coming to take them home. And so it also talks about like when the return of the Messiah, Mashiach, it talks about him coming with tens of thousands of chariots and for the battle of Jehoshaphat and all that. And so, granted, it might be just a fun story for some and interesting. Cool. If you're a believer, take it a little bit more seriously, but just entertain me for a little while longer. What it talks about in there is a great war that'll come in the valley of Jehoshaphat. Sorry. That great war is with those chariots. So for me, seeing the military worrying about a space force and trying to fight some aliens or green men, that always sounded a little off to me. But to deny that there was something flying around, I mean, I'm former I'm a former naval vet. I've talked to pilots who have said, no, this is not fake. That is something real in the sky that we do not know what the hell it is. That they saw it be flying right next to the ship, drop, they lose it on the radar. When they're looking out the windows, they realize this thing is following below them in the water. And then it springs up out of the sky. They try to track it as fast as they can, and it takes off and leaves them. Now, I don't know about the abduction stories and all that. I'm not going to go that far. But I've talked to pilots, which I trust, who have seen some of the craziest stuff being in Afghanistan, Iraq, Bosnia, Kosovo, all these different places. And they're saying, no, I wasn't sleep deprived. It was not a mirage I was seeing. There was something out there. And our government and many of the governments around the world are worried about that unknown force that is coming. Now, for biblical believers, that force is the return of the Messiah and his angels bringing all of his enemies to the valley of Jehoshaphat, destroying them, resetting everything, and setting everything in order. So there will be no more war. The wicked will not be in charge. There won't be all this homelessness and poverty and all that. That's a quick, short synopsis of end time battles without going too graphic and detailed. But that's kind of the prophetic side of it, which I see. I'm watching the government who says, oh, no, we don't believe that it's some angels and all that stuff. But they're preparing for what was predicted in the Bible over 3,000 years ago. So it talked about all the governments preparing for a scenario like this. So for me, I guess I'm maybe a little simple-minded and I keep it simple. So if it's all tracking, I just say, hey, it must be what it says it is. And also, going through there, I can name so many other prophecies, which we might look at the Bible and think, oh, well, they're talking about something that was happening at the time. But you don't realize most of these things are dated to 500, 600, 700 years before these things actually happen. So I'm going to trust that book and be one of those silly people who reads it. But hope you guys had fun with that. But, back to Elle. Did you find did you finish right now what you got for us?
Oh yeah, I wrote it. It was before my last comment, which was about Victoria Woodhull. Basically, just like children are going to get injected with an untested and dangerous gene therapy medicine, and there's going to be more deaths and more, turning the other way from the media, who is complicit in everything. And this has already been foretold by Fauci himself, who wants to inject 6 months your 6 months old kids for a thing that doesn't even affect them, basically, for this virus that barely even affects children of that age. It's absolutely ridiculous and disgusting that so many in the media are in Big Pharma's pocket, I guess, that they don't even notice what's happening with the children and these very dangerous medicines. I don't even want to call them vaccines at this point. They're not.
It's going to lead to more sterilization and death, I say, because death kind of that raises too many red flags, right? It's like being a bull in the china shop. If you break too much china, the owners who sleep upstairs may hear it and come downstairs, right? To use that analogy. They would much rather have a working class that just cannot procreate for a generation or two. Just like did you guys ever see what happened to Monday?
Yeah, yeah.
So it'll be kind of like that, where you'll be, limited to a kid, like we already see with China, but there'll just be a whole bunch of people who just won't be able to have children. And they won't know it. Obviously, if you get the vaccine now at age 12 or 13, let's say you're not trying to have kids for another 14, 15 years. You're not automatically going to think back like, damn, it was that damn vaccine I got when I was 14. You're just going to think, oh, God didn't want me to have a kid. God didn't want me. So we already know they want to play God, and death is too much, and that would bring a huge pushback. Sterilization seems to be the way they want to go.
Well, I mean, to add, remember, or our live stream that got taken down last week, I guess Prime didn't want us showing their content, which was free on YouTube, because I guess, I don't know, it made them uncomfortable. But we're going to go into it and we're going to talk about it any damn way. When I was on with Elle is the one who actually introduced me to the that show. She showed me the clip and we talked about it on the show. And it's so eerie how a lot of this stuff lines up as similar to that. Just like you were talking about the Netflix show, What Happened to Monday. And then I went back and I just binge watched through the whole first season of the American version of Utopia. And then I just went back to, now I'm watching the UK version, which it's brutal. But I do recommend all to pay attention to so-called satire and entertainment that has these kind of themes and concepts, because it's eerie how often, if you look down the road a handful of years, not very long most of the time, you start seeing scenarios in the real world, may not be exactly like it, but it's very similar. And you start seeing even the personalities of people involved with it on the high levels to the media even resemble some of these characters in these fictional shows from years back. So I mean, just my food for thought I wanted to bring out, because Elle, thank you so much for showing me that. And for those still who have not checked that out, please go back and check out that interview I did on Elle's show, on her podcast. We did a part one and a part two, so please check out both of those on her podcast. And at the end, I'll make sure to remind her to give you guys the title and how you can find her podcast. So make sure you have your pens, paper, however you want to jot it down, when she gives you guys information, so you can get it out there. You can share it with your friends and family. Let them know what they need to be paying attention to. Sorry for interrupting, but yeah, tell them some more, like some of your thoughts on Utopia, Elle.
Well, I just thought it was interesting. I was gonna write this in the chat, but it's not really worth it. But the filming ended a couple of days before Event 201 happened, and that was the first season. There was only one season, and it's based on the 2013 series from the UK, Utopia, and it's a remake. And John Cusack did it, and he plays the doctor character who
Dr. Christian
came up with this whole plan, but not really. But he's implementing the plan through the vaccine and the virus and everything. So basically, it's the same thing that's happening. Like, people are lining up for a vaccine that won't really work, and like, it's a bunch of people in the room like talking to him, and he's basically telling them the plan is to depopulate the planet. Amazing. And bring it down to basically 500 million, which is like the Georgia Guidestones, basically. But it's overpopulated. Humans suck. We're destroying the planet. We must be taken down a peg or two. If people have to be sterilized to do it, that's the plan. That's what we have to do. And it's not to kill people. No, that's not the plan. No, they did it without killing people, except not in real life, unfortunately, because people are actually dying. But we don't really know what the causation things and whatever. But anyway, and CDC is totally looking into it. Don't worry about it. And the myocarditis is getting looked at, and there's going to be a pause any day now for sure. But things that we've read over the last century.
Oh, you before you hop in, Chris, there's a something in the chat. I noticed that a question for Elle. I'll go ahead and read it. It says, Elle, I knew her grandson. He lived in Berlin, but was at Obama's inauguration with a sign reading, "Change we should be skeptical of. Her spirit lived on in him and through him also to be a part in me." And then it was another thread. He was from a Mormon family, Salt Lake City, but fled. Unfortunately, he took his own life, apparently. He was raped by a Hollywood mogul as a teenager. I don't think he ever got through it, and I was too young to understand. Wow, that's very deep. Sorry to hear about that.
Wow.
Yeah, I know that you're out in the Hollywood area, and you do. For those who don't know, Elle does have a background in the whole entertainment industry. Would you like to elaborate a little bit on that for those in the crowd, and why you're not doing that also anymore?
Oh, the reason that I call myself a former actor, director, producer, writer, whatever, is that this COVID thing basically was the apocalypse, really. The whole situation with the restrictions and everything has made it very difficult for someone of my stature to get on a set and do anything, because if you're behind the scenes, you're made to wear a mask on set, but if you're in front of a camera, it's totally okay and you don't have to worry about it, because the virus just sees people behind the camera, not in front of them. So that's who it attacks. It's very selective, this virus. It chooses people when they're standing and not when they're sitting and not when they're standing. What is it? Actually, when they're standing or not when they're sitting. When you're seated and you're eating, they ignore you. The virus is very selective and ignores you. It ignores protests if the right protest is happening. So it's just very selective, and I find that very ridiculous. And if we were in a real pandemic, like they show in the movies and everything, in all their predictive programming, that they can't even get right in real life because they can't go that far, because then they would be hurt, because they don't want to subject themselves to this virus, which doesn't really kill most people. So they put these restrictions in place to make it more difficult for you to do anything, because then you have to prove that you had a test, which is probably a PCR test here, and doesn't really work, but will show that you are clear to go to a set to do anything. Pretty much anybody on set has to prove that they don't have COVID now, and I just don't think it's anyone's fucking business what my health is. As long as I'm not coughing on everyone or sneezing on everyone, it shouldn't be an issue. But that's just me talking from someone who has an immune system, which is most of us, that does the trick. And I already had it, so it wasn't even like I was going to get it. In fact, I have been not sick ever since I had it. So it's kind of like a miracle cure for me for colds and flu symptoms, which is pretty cool. Since February 2020, I haven't gotten sick other than like allergies, and that's it. So I don't know if that's just my story, if I'm lucky, or if there are other people who had the same situation. I had never been as sick as I was with COVID since I was a child with my first flu. So it was the same as a flu. That was the experience I had, and I couldn't speak very well, and it really fucked up my podcast. So I was not happy with it. And my work, because I was a sales agent at the time. Now I don't have a job because it's irrelevant now, because it's doing the same thing that everyone's doing and requiring a vaccination card or a negative COVID test. And I have vowed to never get tested. I don't trust this government with my fluids at all. I don't get any tests anymore. That's how paranoid I am at this point. I haven't had a test since I was a child, like a blood test, like a straight up test. The last thing I did was a pregnancy test because I had to prove that I wasn't pregnant to get a CAT scan, which you have to do as an adult, which was stupid because I'm not a sexual being anyway. But I had to prove it because people lie, I guess.
Wow. Oh, Chris, you were about to say something?
No, I was just listening. Just listening to what you say. Obviously, I agree. I told you COVID only came out. COVID went to sleep 9 to 5, right? And from 5 to 9, that's when COVID lurked. It only hung out in the places I wanted to go party at, or the places I wanted to go hang out at. That's where COVID was chilling at. But my job, my 9 to 5, COVID was nowhere to be found there. And I'm sure that's like everybody else too. All the people in the supermarkets and in the Walmarts, the Targets, the Big Lots, whatever you have in your place, I'm sure all year you've seen the same staff that you saw the year prior, etc. The Publix near me, I mean, damn near every single person I've seen as long as I've been here was at work, and nobody missed any significant amount of time. So I've lived here several years, so I do know the people at Publix pretty good, and it's really close to my house. So I just want to say COVID knew to leave the essential workers alone, though. So, COVID is different, Let me stop, man. I'll behave myself. I don't want to get us in trouble again.
Oh, that's what we do. Oh, no, go ahead, Elle.
I was just going to say, like, they can't even see people like Henry Kissinger. They're just not in their sight, apparently. Like, nothing happens to those people. Yeah. You won't see them come down with anything.
Nothing ever happens to, like, anything either.
No, the thing is, stuff does happen to them. They just get, like, 3 hearts. They get, like, brain transplants. They get new bodies, new blood. So whatever happens to them just never affects them long enough for them to die.
It almost sounds like somebody out there is in the business of harvesting organs or something.
That could never happen.
No, never could that happen.
Someone posited a theory that some of the elected officials that we had, they've had a stroke or two. They have a couple of strokes or two, and pretty much sliding their way in the dimension. When we're not supposed to talk about that, because when they go and vote, apparently they've healed. They're cognizant as soon as they step in the chamber. So,
well, you didn't realize that votes actually heal you. That it actually heals you from stuff like dementia. So, for every vote that he got, Biden started coming back. It was like the flesh was coming back on the bones. The monster was starting to stand back up. Hair was starting. It was like the mummy, watching it. All the flesh was coming back, the hair. And then he put on a pair of at the end.
Respect him. He is of the Patriot Act in 1993, I believe.
That is true.
He came up with it. He's a gentleman of scholars.
Let's say, Chris, go ahead.
No, I was saying piece of excrement. I used a different word, but I didn't want to get us in trouble in case we got a certain limit. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's that's the reason why we have. Could you mute, Chris? That's why I start putting it out like right before we live stream. Say, hey, make sure you guys hop in and catch these live streams, or catch it like right after, or first thing in the morning. Because sometimes even first thing in the morning might be too late, because I'm tired of like tiptoeing too much. I mean, at a certain point, they got to be able to handle some kind of criticism, even if we're completely off base on everything. Say we are. what the hell difference would it make? What could we actually affect and change? If you're that afraid of what we're saying, and I mean, we're talking about a couple thousand. I mean, maybe tens of thousands of people might have listened to our content at some point in time. Do you really think maybe 20,000, 30,000 people really affected that much of anything that's going to happen here? And if you also factor in about that 20 to 30,000 people are probably all on the lower rungs of society also, who have no power, why are you so afraid of us to just speak and point out things? Why the fear? Let's say, yeah, sorry.
They know their propaganda only runs but so deep, right? And it doesn't take much disruption to actually undo it. So that's why they have to get people out of there, and they do the things they do. You know what I'm saying? Just a simple YouTube, go down the rabbit hole on YouTube. If you know what videos to watch, like, you can do away with a lot of their programming rather quickly.
Mm-hmm. And I also kind of want to bring Emmanuel in on this because Chris, for those who don't know, Chris has kind of come from the background of kind of being a little bit more skeptical in general. I come from the background of being more of a historian, and then religion kind of being a separate category. Um, but Emmanuel has kind of come from more the traditional lane of politics. But if something didn't look right, willing to always call it out. And so a lot of these topics that we brought him into over however long that the show has been going now, he has been able to be the voice of completely just looking at the facts that are laid out, not already coming in with, say, the maybe biased viewpoint that maybe Chris or myself might have. And so I would like to turn this over to you, Emmanuel, real quick. What have you thought of like most of this information now, what you know, and starting out from the beginning of when the show started up to now? Because we put out and talked about so many topics, and a lot of the topics that we've talked about have all kind of like bottlenecked right into this same topic of the Great Reset that we've been talking about. Oh, you're muted. But yeah, you're muted, Emmanuel. Emmanuel, you're still muted. Tap your mute. I'm muting. Uh-oh. Did we lose him? Yep.
Yeah, I guess he probably gonna jump back in. He will. But yeah, like we discussed, Marcus, I'm the crazy one, and I believe all the other crazy shit, and that's fine with me. But as we can see, as we move on and things develop, we can see some of the crazy stuff is just part of reality now. Just even the media discussion, some of the discussion I catch regarding the corona, right? When it was like, oh, this is man-made, it came from a lab. Last year was crazy. Even when Trump said it, oh, it could possibly come from a lab, right? That was crazy. Fast forward to June of 2021, the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, they're now talking about this very same thing. Obviously, their reasons for doing that versus our reasons for doing that are very different. But still, the fact that they're even having that conversation should tell you that, we're not all crazy.
I was reading some of these comments. Sorry. Saying, Kelly talked about this. Talked about it. Also, sweet sour. Hard to resist. I know. That's what I tell everybody. Dealing and also with my faith, one of the big things that it talks about is it says, be prepared for the time of temptation. There's going to be a time when this great temptation is going to come. And what I've always broke down and what I taught is that great temptation is that very RFID microchip that we were talking about earlier that's going to have everything on it. And that might tie into this whole COVID passport stuff. I'm not saying that for a fact. I don't know. I don't have evidence. So, but I'm saying it could be a possibility. And if that happened, that would literally be fulfilling Bible prophecy, because it said there's going to become a time when a man cannot. Now, when I'm saying man, I'm encompassing everybody. So please don't take that too offensively, people. But it says when a man cannot go into when he cannot purchase, when he's, all of these things that they're not going to be able to do if they resist this temptation that is going to come. So for me, how I've always understood that, and this is going back to, I'm talking about when I was a kid, when I first started even hearing about the mark of the beast, or if you read it in the Hebrew, it says a karagma, which that's an actual something that is implanted into your right hand or in your forehead. That's what it says per the Bible. Now, Elon Musk is talking about brain chips. All of these things which I read about, I read about as a child. I'm talking about like 8, 9 years old. I'm 40 years old now. And now we're seeing all this technology laying out in front of me. Now, people can say, you're still crazy, whatever. But I remember Biden on tape even telling people that they were going to have to rule legislation regarding the RFID chip. That hasn't happened yet, but I'm pretty sure it's coming. I believe that was during the Bush administration. And that was before anybody even really heard about it. When I was in the military, our records, that's when it first started becoming more used in America, before it started going on debit cards and before it started going in your phones as in your SIM cards. When I was in the military, it started off as our meal pass card. Forever to go to the chow hall, we had to insert that card with the chip. Next thing you know, our dental records were on. Next thing you know, our medical records were on. Next thing you know, our whole service records on. And now to this day, active duty military, all of your information is on your ID card, which has that chip. And so whenever you go to medical, dental, wherever you go, they just insert that chip, and it has literally all your information on it from the whole time that you joined the military. And so most of these things always start out in testing and application in the military, and then advance outwardly, or they start off in third world countries, and then on a small scale, then it's in a major, normally a European or Asian nation, where you see it start popping up tech wise, and then it starts getting incorporated into more of the superpowers of first world nations. Now that we have Emmanuel back, can you do a sound check real quick?
Yes, we can do a fucking sound check real quick. I mean, what the fuck was that? Can you hear me? What the fuck?
I can hear that.
I've been trying to get him for like the last 5 fucking minutes. No. I mean, first they muted me entirely, and then it booted me out like the internet did it or something that. So then I checked like all my other internet. It's fine. It's just streaming. Let me fucking in. Fucking. You know what I've learned at the end? I question everything. I question every goddamn thing. Everything. Every goddamn, because they shit on my everything. Everything. Nothing. I look into everything. I question everything. Shit. Tired of this shit, man. 5 fucking minutes of not being able on. 5 minutes. It was like torture. Could you imagine when that actually happened? All of a sudden, shit don't work. Give me a break, man. That's just being tethered to the internet or some shit like that. Ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. What's fine? I tested my internet. Fucking bullshit, man. Don't trust nobody. Unfucking believable. Unfucking believable. Yeah, I question everything, Marcus. You want that? That's the answer I give you. I question every fucking thing. I question everything. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. I was about to say my answer, and they cut me off. Say they. I'm gonna call it they. They, whoever the fuck they are.
Well,
Fucking
that's
people
why
are. I don't. Fuck them. Fuck these
that's
people.
why I had myself on mute, but me and Elle, we're both here dying laughing. But the reason why, most people don't see Emmanuel ever start getting turned up, and so
No, you're right. I get mad. I usually don't.
but I got in his defense. What people don't realize is, what has it been, Chrissy? And you could kind of testify. Probably for maybe the past like 4 months straight, Emmanuel has been the only one that's been all of a sudden having all these problems. And at first, he had no problems at all. He hasn't changed his system at all. And now he has the worst communication at all. He always has random echoes that start up. Randomly, he goes on mute that he can't control it. And then it just boots him out randomly also.
And you can't get back in either.
Had enough.
It just says, "Oh, we're done with you. We're gonna boot you out. I'm hearing what you have to say. We're just gonna disrupt everything." Like I'm not even the smartest. I'm not even the smartest man in this room. I'm like, they don't boot Marcus off. They don't boot Chris off. What bullshit is that?
Well, remember what was it, like 3 weeks ago? They did boot me off.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did. Right, they did.
When we were actually, no, that was last week when we were showing the clips, the one which got taken down.
Oh yeah, that went shit. Everybody had a bad time. They could be heard. Nobody could be seen. Nothing. It's unbelievable. Usually it affects what? Me or you? Me and you.
It normally doesn't affect Chris. That's the thing.
Right.
Me and Emmanuel always. Now
and then even Chris echo thing that was happening earlier today. That never happens.
That's the first.
Rarely ever happens. So, ooh, yeah, that made me, man. I'm sorry. I usually don't get upset.
That's why.
Yeah. It's working perfectly fine. She hasn't cut out at all.
That's another thing. She hasn't cut out.
Yeah. Even when the only time it's echoed is on Chris, but since I've had her on this whole time, we've had any problems, been able to hear everything perfectly fine. It's always interesting how these things tend to work out. It's almost like and I could be completely paranoid at this point in time, and maybe I am, but I will go ahead and say it. This is what I feel like. There's literally somebody, I don't know the being, whatever, non-binary, binary, whatever. I don't know. But I believe there is somebody sitting there in a dimly lit room with a big screen. Well, not that big, but at least a computer monitor size, or maybe 2 or 3. And they're sitting up there eating gummy bears or popcorn or something. Yeah, let's slow it down here. Let's fuck with that. Let's give them a little echo time. And they sit back and literally just laugh in their ass off. Like I said, I can be completely paranoid and crazy at this point, but that's what I believe is going on. That there is literally like a little case agent who is assigned to certain channels or their views. Say, you know what? They start getting a little too far. Let's just.
They actually do it. They actually do exist, Mark. I think they were good. That discussion in like Facebook or whatever. They have like an entirely department or whatever, and they sit down and they like everything everybody's doing like all the fucking time, like beyond horrible or something like that. So you're right. That could entirely be it. He's like, I can't fucking hear you. And then it drops off my call. What the fuck, man? Never happened.
I figure it's towards the end of the show, so I'll go ahead and throw out something controversial as usual. But I do happen to know for a fact that the IDF does have actual soldiers, part of their internet unit, who are involved with YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of those different organizations. The degree to what they're doing, I cannot tell you or confirm, but I do know that they are involved. So I'll hang that out there and let you all think about it. Any thoughts to share on that, Elle?
No.
Well, I guess we're getting to close to about 2:30, 2.5 hours. So I guess we can go ahead and wrap this up.
Could I leave you with something?
Oh, what was that?
Could I leave you with something to check out?
Sure, definitely. In fact, let me have the other guys give their closing thoughts, and then I want to have you end it with your closing thoughts before we lead out. Will that work?
That works.
All right.
I guess
first and then
All right. Well, one, I want to thank Elle for coming through. You know, that was real nice of her to spend 2.5 hours with us. She hung in there like a trooper. So thank you. Next time, I hope we get a visual, you know, along with the audio. But you did great there too. The commenters, you know, thank you all. You know, as usual, you help. You know, you bring certain seasoning to the show, so we appreciate that. There's nothing worse than bland, unseasoned food. So you guys help season up the meal, you know, so we appreciate it. Thank you and good night.
I want to appreciate Elle for coming on. I watched I scrolled through her Twitter. I went through her I went on her podcast where I heard I heard Marcus and her speak. It was very informative, insightful. They were very good with each other. I thought that was interesting. To all the commentators, you know, they make my day. Yeah, and whoever's fucking with my shit, fuck you, fuck your AI, fuck the horse you rode in on. I hope you burn in hell. I'm an atheist and burn in hell. Like I hope you actually burn in hell. Whoever the AI, the punk kid with the fat belly who's laughing, I hope you ride to hell too. So I'm good. I'm done. Good night.
All right. And a couple of comments. I will finish up. It says,
Kelly, you did good this week, Kelly. But next week, you know, we back to it, Kelly.
Yes, behaving herself for this week. Yes. Like Denmark and South Park. And then a couple of other good comments. Great show. Thanks for embracing me. Happy to embrace you. Thank you, everybody else. Mariana, signs, everybody in the chat. Thomas, definitely. I definitely want to put Elle's comment back on the screen as she gives us a final send off for tonight. Says, thank you so much for the support in the chat from the crew. Love you all. And we're so glad that you were able to have the time. I'm definitely, now that I know that I can get you to stick around, you know, up this late with the show, I'm definitely going to have you back. So just know I'm going to be pestering you to come back in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, was that?
No, I said you're welcome.
Okay. So I just wanted to leave you with something because you kept mentioning like digital IDs and biometric data and all that stuff. There is a good website that I got from my lovely Whitney Webb source. She's amazing for everything, pretty much what we're talking about. And she used a source one time from biometricupdate.com. And it was about like a partnership with MasterCard and Bill Gates, one of his foundations or whatever, and ID 2020, whatever it was. But anyway, they give you like updates on what's going on in different countries, so you can see what's going to happen when it comes here. You know, they're doing digital health passes, they're doing fingerprint cards, all the stuff that you can imagine. I'm sure microchips are coming up soon. Like, you know, it's just one thing after another there, and you'll get like all the updates on what's going to come to your airport, all the shitty things that you have to deal with in the future, so you can be prepared for it before you get to that point. So I recommend biometricupdate.com for everything elitist. And Chris Burt is apparently a very busy contributor on that website, because I see his name a lot on the articles. So shout out to Chris Burt, I guess. But yeah, they have a lot of information about what's going on behind the scenes with a lot of these organizations and where they're putting their money. And a lot of it's in the private sector, in businesses, and like scans and stuff like that, retina scans and ID systems, like AI, all kinds of stuff. So it's just good to be up on what's going on around the world, like in Africa, Asia, Germany, all those places, UK. You get all that information.
It's interesting you said Africa. I've been kind of dragging my feet on some of the projects I've been working on, because I've been trying to figure out the order I want to do them in. But I do have a video coming up on my What I've Been Thinking channel, talking about the colonization of Africa and some of the things, which is going to be interesting to hear a Western professor actually admit some of the things which are pretty obvious to see. Thomas says, nice panel discussion and topics. It was fun. I know, I kind of like this. I'm telling you, I'm going to have to be really, really pestering Elle to drag her back more often. I really enjoyed the panel and the conversation. Oh yeah. Elle, could you make sure to put your podcast information in the link, and share with everybody again the name of the podcast, because I'm going to mix it up.
I did put it in there before. It doesn't like make it linkable or whatever, but you can copy and paste it. I'll do it again. It's on superoperafuncast.podbean.com is the website. And if you want to catch it on Apple Podcasts, just look up Super Opera Funcast. It's the only one there, literally. I took that name before anyone else got to it, thankfully, in 2013. So it's been around a long time, but it doesn't have a lot of episodes, so you can catch up pretty easily. It's like once a month that I do the show, but I used to do it a lot less frequently. But since the apocalypse, I've had a lot more time on my hands, and research time. So I'm a lot smarter than I was back then.
I think in that case, most of us are in a lot of ways. I guess with that said, we're going ahead and close out. Make sure to look for the videos that I have coming up on my on the What I've Been Thinking channel. I'm also thinking about doing what I'm thinking about calling car chat. I'm normally in the car for roughly about a good 30-minute ride home, and there's always these different topics coming up, and it's something that you want to get out real quick. I might just throw it on, throw the camera, or throw my avatar up or whatever, and just talk to you all on the ride home, different stories or topics that are going on. I figure I'll try that out next week. So, if you guys are interested, make sure to like, share, tell people about it. That yes, I'm doing more content on the What I've Been Thinking channel. A lot of my heavy research is kind of slowed down, putting out some of my content, but I have more content coming soon on Hebrew apologetics with Marcus Cage also. But this has been the Political Matrix. I'm your host, Young Morpheus, here with Cy Lawson, Emmanuel the Blue Maverick, and Elle Latham. You all have a wonderful weekend, and please be safe out there. Take care.
Thank you so much.